Welcome to another nerdy review. I'm the Absolute Nerd, and today I'll be reviewing Mobile Fighter G Gundam. Now, if you haven't already and you're watching this on Twitch, follow me on my Twitch channel. If you are watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. That said, Gundam fight all set, ready, go! Oh, that was hilarious. I'm sorry. I just had to have fun with this one here, guys. So this is just, a little cheesiness here because G Gundam is pretty cheesy itself. It's a cheesy goodness. So yeah, don't expect too much of this though, but I can't guarantee I won't stop. If the cringe factor wasn't already there, it is now. I hope you cringe, you lose. But yes, it is serious. I will be reviewing the G Gundam series today. Let's get things started off with the actual story of the series here. This series does take place in a alternate universe. It takes place in Future Century 60, where Gundam fight tournaments are set to determine the ruler of the world for the next 4 years. We follow Neo Japan's fighter Domon Kashu and his engineering companion Rei Nikimura as they compete in the 13th Gundam fight while searching for Domon's brother and the elusive Devil Gundam. Or Dark Gundam if you're going to go with the English translation. Unfortunately, folks, I will be going with the English translation, so this is how I grew up with the series and how I actually rewatched it too. So, yes, I'll be doing English translations. I will be covering the difference of the names. With that story being said, there isn't a whole lot of change in this story. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like right there. Changes a little bit because of the tournament aspects, but that's basically it. Now, if you couldn't already tell, G Gundam's a pretty controversial series here. Controversial, but a beloved spin to the Gundam franchise. Let me put it this way. Like I already mentioned to you, this is the very first series that was an alternate universe set in Future Century, not in the Universal Century that we've been watching in the Gundam series thus far. In our actual real-life timeline, this is the first alternate universe, although we did have some kind of differences with Regaled Century and Correct Century with the Gundam Reconquista G and Turn A Gundam, just to give you respective sites to that. But G Gundam is really the one that starts it all off with a whole new take on the Gundam centuries. This was Bandai Sunrise's attempt to revitalize the Gundam franchise after it kind of got a little bit stale after Victory Gundam, with plummeting sales and so forth. So they wanted to sell, of course, more toys, more models. So they wanted to take a different approach with Gundam. Now, another big difference with Mobile Fighter G Gundam is not directed by Yoshiyuki Tomino, who's done majority of the Gundam series and movies, or other directors who've done the OVAs and so forth. This Gundam series is actually directed by someone completely different by the name of Yasuhiro Imigawa. Now, he's also known for directing Giant Robo and Giant Robo Armageddon, so he's not unfamiliar with the super robot scene. If you couldn't already tell by the screenshot here, this is actually a wallpaper. G Gundam is very different, very controversial from the original, or not the overall Gundam franchise, because it's not set in a militarized, realistic setting. In fact, it is absolutely different. G Gundam is classified more so like a shonen anime. In fact, it is a super robot shonen anime. Very different. I personally like to akin this to like Street Fighter or something like that. This series has a lot of energy. Before I really dive into that, I want to dive into some of like the fun things too. So again, like I mentioned, G Gundam is the first of the AU series, or alternate universe series. This one again set in Future Century. We do get 2 more series in the 90s block time frame that produces more alternate universes. The successors to G Gundam in the alternate universe timelines would then be New Mobile Report Gundam Wing and After War Gundam X. Gundam Wing taking place in A-Seer After Colony, and Gundam X taking place in After War. So this is not the only one that's going to be set in a different timeline. We're going to have plenty of other ones since we're no longer talking about UC Century at this point. So we're going to get a lot of alternate universes, but G Gundam's where it starts it all. And man, does it break a lot of things with the Gundam franchise, but still maintaining a lot of things as well. Like I mentioned already, the biggest departure with the series is that it's a super robot and a shonen anime. Nothing like any of the other Gundam series in the franchise thus far. So we got a lot of crazier, almost impossible mecha antics that was not even feasible in any of the previous Gundam series. Although there have been moments in the Gundam series that works, it's kind of like, of course, besides giant robots, you gotta suspend the disbelief that, like, oh, they can probably do that, or someone's gonna survive this. Throw it out with G Gundam. The absolute ridiculousness with the Gundams and the fighting is outrageously great. It's terribly bad as a Gundam fan, but at the same time, it's awesome. That being said, too, the shonenness. So again, this is a fighting anime, so it's not about militarized stories or we're following a group that's trying to survive. We're following fighters and competitors in a tournament to rule the world. So it's just mostly just fighting for the most part, and the masculinity behind it and the funness overall, the over the topness, the exerting energy and craziness of the fights. Because of the differences here, this is a very, again, it's a controversial, it's a polarized series. When it was first released back in 1994, Japan was mediocre with the release itself. Here in the United States, it actually did really, really good when it was released back in 2001 on Toonami, on the Toonami block for Cartoon Network. I remember when I first watched this series, this was a awesome series to watch. It was just exciting, fun, and just completely outrageous. Granted, the only other experiences I had with Gundam was, of course, Gundam Wing. I believe they had aired 8th MS Team at that time. I don't recall they had aired Gundam, the original Gundam, before or after G Gundam. But I remember this being part of the lineup of Gundam series I had watched, and it was just a lot of fun. It still is to this day. However, with those differences, sometimes a lot of other fans who are expecting something from from G Gundam to be a lot more of a serious toned anime, just like the previous Gundam series, were completely let down. Some of them were absolutely devastated and disregard or disown this from the entire franchise. I can totally get that. I think that's a little bit more exaggerated than the series itself, but hey, everyone's got their opinion on it. Now, when I was talking earlier too about the core elements of the Gundam franchise, it really pertains towards like how certain aspects of the Gundam franchise, how war is terrible, and instead of specifically saying war, they were saying throughout the entire series that the Gundam fights is to replace the war, but these fights themselves have ravaged the Earth, has destroyed much of the nations themselves, and a lot of the nations have now fled towards space, somehow taking a lot of the portions of their continents up into space and leaving a lot of the other denizens on Earth to suffer. So again, we got a lot of that war is hell kind of a thing. Whoever wins, the innocent lose. We even get some environmental tones that we see previously as well, like in Victory Gundam, and later on we would see that in like Turn A or other future Gundam series as well. So it does touch on some of these core elements, surprisingly enough, despite being absolutely opposite to a lot of things that is part of the Gundam franchise. But what I really want to say about G Gundam is that it has been a absolutely fun series. I remember hearing about it when I was originally coming into it, like from like online forums and the such. There was a lot of dissidence with this series, very polarized. I get people who mostly were saying like G Gundam sucked, it wasn't that fun, it was different than what I was expecting from Gundam, it's an absolute disgrace, it shouldn't be called a Gundam series. And then you get the other side that I've seen too, not always heard but seen, which was like, oh man, G Gundam's so fun, it's an enjoyable series, it's relaxing for the most part compared to actual other Gundam series where it's very intense regarding the story and its tones that it tries to hammer down through. G Gundam takes the tones, takes all the core elements like I talked about, they put it out there, but they don't really hammer too much home with it. And it makes the fights a lot more enjoyable, but kind of like how Domon talks, or how Master Asia puts it, like they talk with their fists. The fighting really exaggerates or really puts out there these core elements. So I don't see how some people say it was a disgrace with the Gundam franchise, or this Gundam franchise as a whole. It still pays a lot of respects to it and utilizes quite a bit of the core elements. Not all of them, I would say, but quite a bit of them. Along with that, it's just an overall real fun series. Like, I keep saying fun, 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 but I don't know how else to describe a fighting anime. You watch a fight and you're really just watching this, like watching a fight for the fight itself. G Gundam doesn't play around or pretend to be something else. It is what it is. It knows it's super cheesy. It knows it's super silly, so it runs with it absolutely. It's going to make all these exaggerated characters. It's going to make an exaggeration or cliche out of the entire story itself with their characters. And the fights are so over the top at times, it gets ridiculous. But you know, it knows it's a super robot series. It doesn't try to pretend that it's real robot or anything like that. And it just goes with it. It just runs with it. A suit powered by love, by emotion or anything like that? Please enlighten me how that works, because that kind of shows up like in the other Gundam series with new type powers. So the whole argument with some fans saying like, oh, it's so super robot that it ruins the other Gundam series. I don't think so. I think it goes alongside well with it. Although yes, it is super robot-y. I can't imagine Gundams fighting without really destroying each other. But this series just goes like, we'll make the damage real when it matters. Other than that, we're just gonna have fun with it. This is Rock'em Sock'em Robots. We're gonna just see things fight and have fun until they break. We don't want to see them break. But yes, G Gundam has a lot of heart behind it. Has a lot of fun, and interesting fights, and definitely has a cast of boot to kick it off and have a lot of fun with all of this. So I think a lot of the naysayers that get upset about G Gundam really just get upset that it's not like any other Gundam series. Personally, as a UC elitist myself, I actually value G Gundam a lot. It breaks away from what we are familiarized with Gundam, and allows us just to have fun with the Gundam mythos, the core ideologies or core elements of the Gundam franchise, and allows us to rebuild with something anew. Just like how Bandai Sunrise intended G Gundam to be, it is something to revitalize the entire franchise, completely different than what it is. I think it was a warm welcoming, in my opinion. I'm sad that not everyone's in the same manner, but hey, not everyone's gonna like everything, so that's absolutely fine. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into our next segment here, which is the favorite suits or not favorite suits of the Gundam series. With G Gundam, just like every other Gundam series, if you're not familiar with this, every Gundam series brings in a brand new slew of suits, redesigns, old designs, battleships, those sort of things. G Gundam is absolutely no different to this, with one exception to the fact of the matter. G Gundam probably brings in the most Gundams, new designs to the entire Gundam franchise. I don't think there's any Gundam series to this day that beats out G Gundam. Here is just a list of Gundam. As you can see, every single suit introduced in this series is not a mobile suit. They are Gundams. In fact, there are more Gundams. I think when I had counted this out, I might have miscounted because there's some duplicates that show up here. Not throughout here, but like Master Gundam shows up into the list here. If I'm not mistaken here, about 40 new Gundams are introduced in this series. That's a record breaker. I don't know any other Gundam franchise or Gundam series that does this. That being said, there is a ton and a ton and a ton of new Gundams to look at. All of them are based off of the nations that they represent, the Neo portion of the nation. So there are some really, really funny ones that I want to show off here real quick before I jump into the suits I actually really like. There's a lot of them. I can almost do a video on its own about these suits. I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep it super short. But the first Gundam I want to show you guys that is very unique, these are kind of like honorable mentions as being funny, is Neo Netherlands Gundam, the Nether Gundam. They also call it the Windmill Gundam, if I remember correctly. It is really, really silly. really silly. There's a portion in the series where you actually see these suits. There's multiple of these Gundams. They transform from the windmills into this. I was like, wow. You see what I'm talking about when they exaggerate or they are stereotyping from a nation? Let me show you another one. We have Neo Spain's Matador Gundam. You can't get away with these designs in any other Gundam series. I feel like some of these designs in the entire this entire Gundam series, is either to go all out or just straight out, spite Bandai Sunrise because they're like, we want to make more toys, we want to make more models, and pressuring in this manner. So I'm like, okay, we'll make you one. And that's why I feel like Matador Gundam just looked absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what's more ridiculous, Matador Gundam or Nether Gundam. Both of them are ridiculous. If you ask me, I'm going to say Matador Gundam. Matador Gundam is probably the most ridiculous of the two. There are more ridiculous Gundams. I actually wish I could make a list of, most ridiculous Gundams of G Gundam, but Matador Gundam is probably the most ridiculous. It's just by far the weirdest design. It's just mostly the head and the front legs and the horn of a bull with a Gundam head slapped on with arms too, and cut out the body and slap the tail on the butt. There you go. The butt end of the head. Nether Gundam makes a little bit more sense because it looks like a windmill still and all that jazz, but Matador Gundam looks just too ridiculous for me. As much as Nether Gundam is ridiculous, at least it transforms into a Matador mode. I would expect this to transform into a bull, but we didn't get that. So, anywho, let me close these off. Let's see. Yeah. By the way, I did want to talk about the differences in names because some of the names that you can see right here pop up, they're actually different. So I got the list of names here. I'm not going to name all of them here. Example, I just mentioned Nether Gundam and Matador Gundam. Nether Gundam's actual name in Japanese is Hurricane Gundam, and Matador Gundam is Toro Gundam. These are all for the US names. Now, when this came over to the United States, this series did get some changes to it because of how stereotypical a lot of these things were, and they didn't want to peeve off parents or the censors, so they did change the names. So the US dubbing is very different regarding... I forgot to even talk about this, and I'll talk about right now here. With the dubbing, a lot of the dubbing has a lot of this energy behind it too. Sometimes it's okay and flounders a bit, but where it really, really counts is that strength and bravado with the characters in their fighting. That being said, with the English dubbing, though, we have the redubbing of the suits. More primarily was the titular G Gundam, or what is known as in Japan as God Gundam. That's what G Gundam actually is. How kind of like where there's V Gundam or Z Gundam, right? Well, we know it's Zeta Gundam and Victory Gundam. G Gundam is referring to God Gundam. Unfortunately, a lot of, myself, when I had originally watched this series on Toonami, I had no idea why they called it G Gundam. And it wasn't until I did a little researching it after the fact of the matter, I had watched the series and looking online, I found out, wow, Burning Gundam is actually God Gundam. And it's not erupting burning finger, it's erupting God finger. And I was like, oh, wow, that really changes a lot of things. Same thing with Dark Gundam or the Dark Army. We have the Devil Gundam and the Death Army. So I thought it was kind of strange and weird that they changed it like that, but it makes sense because God and Devil don't want to upset the Christian parents. Death Army, oh no, hearing about death, don't want the kiddos to hear about that. Some of the other ones kind of threw me off. I mean, Tequila Gundam makes sense, so they changed it to Desert Gundam. Tequila Gundam is Spike Gundam. But I mean, tequila's an alcohol. I can get that. But some of them are kind of weird. Lumber Gundam, they changed it to Grizzly Gundam? Why? Or Pharaoh Gundam, they changed it to Mummy Gundam. What's up with that? Some of these name changes I just did not understand. I totally get Gundam Heaven's Sword to Raven Gundam. I get that. Trying to take away all the, the Christian references and whatnot, just so not to upset parents that are of different religions. I get it. But some of the other Gundam names, Hurricane Gundam and Nether Gundam, what? Well, I don't get that. Pharaoh Gundam, Mummy Gundam, I don't get that. So I thought it was just a little bit weird with some of these names and dubbing. So that was the one thing that kind of threw me off when I was younger, but still didn't stop me from enjoying the series. But on with the suits. The first one I want to start off with is the Devil Gundam, or Dark Gundam itself. I actually like its mobile armor, its mobile fighter form, basically. That's what it's calling it. The mobile fighter form, or the Gundam version of it itself, I really do enjoy it. The mobile armor version is not that bad, and we see that quite a bit. I'm not going to show anything else beyond that one, but it's not a bad design. I actually really like it a lot. You can't tell, but it has kind of like a spinal thing, so it's kind of like separates. Actually, it shows it more like here, so kind of like a snake almost. I kind of like this whole entire like overall design. It looks a little weird, but when it transforms and it's got all these like Gundam head kind of looks, it just looks cheesy cool. Master Gundam, I actually really like Master's design. It's got a lot of these like kind of like weird little like shoulder pad portions to it. The legs have these like little spines, and the wing binders creates this little cloak around Master. I think it's also kind of funny because when he flies away at times, he'll fly away like that, so he looks like a rocket. Kind of ridiculous. The head, while looking like a jester, is very menacing and kind of gives it like a devil's horns almost. So like overall, I really like the suit design. The claws make it very menacing too, with his fingers. The next Gundam I liked a lot in this series is this was a toss up because I like this one just as my number one suit, but the Gundam Spiegel, or the Shadow Gundam, which is known in the U.S. This was a hard call because I really like I'm going to call it Shadow Gundam because that's how I'm familiar with it. I really do like the Shadow Gundam because it reminds me of like Guyver or Kikaider almost. I like the chest design, the helmet itself too. And the backpack, let me see if we can't see the backpack, but the backpack has like cool, like it's like a weird little shaped, basically like a L-shaped, L hook. So this is a core fighter. These come down, so it kind of forms like a little L. I kind of make it like a little bit weird because this thing would pop in so I can get inside of the suit. But its fighting techniques with Schwartz is really, really cool. I like the blades on it overall. Just an overall neat design. I liked it a lot. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't understand the offensiveness of Spiegel. I really don't. I'm not familiar with German terminology, let alone much of the German culture, so I'm ignorant here, but I don't know why they had to change it from Spiegel to Shadow, but here we are, and here's how I'm calling it. Yes, impressions are very, very important, folks, because my impression is not calling it Gundam Spiegel, it's Shadow Gundam. I don't call Devil Gundam, I call it Dark Gundam. And the next Gundam, I always call it as Burning Gundam, which is also originally known as God Gundam. This is a lovely suit. I really, really like the Burning Gundam design, the overall functions of the suit. It is really, really cool, and dare I say groundbreaking with super robotness, especially for a Gundam series. This suit just goes over the top with a lot of its moments. It is the upgrade to the Shining Gundam, a far superior suit than the Shining Gundam. It has a lot of the functions and features from what Shining Gundam had, but upgraded furthermore. So yeah, really love it. I don't think I can show much. Let me see if I can show the Godfinger. Yeah, so it's the Godfinger. That's why I kind of did like a Vulcan signature almost, but the Godfinger kind of like that. And when he does his erupting Godfinger, I'm gonna try and correct myself for you folks who watched this originally, how it is. Yeah, but me and many other US viewers who watch this on Toonami refer to it as the erupting burning finger, and that's how we remember it. But yeah, these are all my favorite suits of G Gundam. A lot of them are fun designs. I would say if you ever get a chance, stop by the MHQ. Take a look at a lot of the designs if you have never watched the series or don't intend to, because there's a lot of crazy, unique suit designs. Maybe offensive at times too, but honestly, take it with tongue-in-cheek laugh and just know that the series is trying to have like a nice little funness with it. I don't think it's that bad. People who find this offensive, I don't know what else to say to you and why you how you're sensitive to that one, but honestly, this is a fun series. I do want to point out a honorable mention. So I do apologize. I forgot to not bring up this Gundam here. I'm gonna put her right behind Spiegel Gundam, because I'm sorry, Shadow Gundam and Burning Gundam are top tier designs. I could not decide which one was the better one, right? But Neo Sweden's Noble Gundam for Alan B. Beardsley is not a top contender, because that's like, I love the suit design because it reminds me of Sailor Moon. Obviously, I love Sailor Moon too, but it's hard. I can't say this is the number one, but it's a really awesome suit design. You got the high heels, you got the little bow, you got the sailor-esque outfit looking here. Her weapon is a kind of like a beam. Let's see if we have it here. Oh, it doesn't have it. It's like a beam tassel almost. Not a tassel, it's a beam ribbon. I apologize. I don't care for the Berserker mode on this suit. Good thing they don't, I mean, not a good thing. I wish I could show it though, but I don't really care much for the Berserker mode. But this is such a really cool design. Really, really fits Allenby's character too. Definitely number 3 in my list of suits I like for this series. I think I'd be amiss not to mention the Noble Gundam. But yeah, those are my favorite suits for G Gundam. But let me go ahead and jump into my last segment here, which is, I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I start off with G Gundam first? Now, normally I would say, no, don't start off with G Gundam first, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to break my rule one time here, and I'm going to say, yes, start off with G Gundam first. Just like how G Gundam is, I'm saying yes for this very reason. G Gundam is absolutely opposite to everything that's in the Gundam franchise itself. It's not a militarized drama featuring real robots. It's a shonen anime with super robots fighting. It's a lot of fun for the most part, and I think it's a great entry point. It still has core elements of the Gundam franchise, so it's not completely opposing to what the Gundam franchise is. But yeah, I definitely recommend G Gundam for a first-time viewer in the Gundam franchise. A lot of people would say, like, well, Brisson, you're wrong about that, because it's going to feature, like, you know, all this fighting and stuff like that. It's going to be different than what you watch in the Gundam series of the Gundam franchise. Not really. When you really look at it, yes, majority of the episode time frames of G Gundam will feature a lot of the fighting and, of course, the story. But when you jump into other Gundam series, for the most part, it does kind of divvy it up pretty well between like a 50-50 between the action and the storyline. So I don't really see it too much as an issue as jumping into from G Gundam to another Gundam series. The only big difference would be, instead of watching giant robots fight in a shonen-esque manner, you're just going to see giant robots fight in a realistic, militarized manner. So there you have it. Alright, and as for the overall, G Gundam breaks the Gundam franchise mold as an incredibly fun super robot shonen anime. Its unique and exaggerated characters and super robot Gundams create a visually enjoyable melting pot of crazy, over-the-top action while still maintaining a lot of the core elements of the Gundam franchise. Alright, it's time to end this review. This score of mine is burning red. Its loud roar tells me it's gonna be great. Mobile Fighter G Gundam gets an erupting, burning 4 out of 5! Oh man, I told you I wasn't promising I wasn't gonna do anything else cheesy for this review, but that's all I got for you guys. Overall, again, G Gundam is a great series. Highly recommend this series to you. Not just as a Gundam fan, but just as a fan and like just an enjoyer of watching anime. It's a really fun anime to watch. I highly recommend checking out G Gundam, especially as a Gundam franchise entry point too. So Do yourself a favor. You're going to have a lot of fun watching this series, I promise you. All right, and if you guys are watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow my Twitch account here. If you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you guys think about G Gundam, what you thought about my thoughts on it. Do you like G Gundam? Do you think it sucks? Do you think it's a disgrace to the Gundam franchise? Do you think it's an awesome entry to the Gundam franchise? I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? And if you want to keep update with me when I'm going to go live and the such, make sure to follow me on my Twitter account. On my Twitter account, I announce when I go live, what I'm going to be reviewing next, and of course, when I go, just random things here and there. That said, I do want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Nerdy Reviews, and until the next review, I will see you next time. Take care.